Welcome to Chinwag Tuesdays, your passport to a world of language and culture. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Chinwag Tuesdays. I'm Amanda and today we have Xiang. She's originally from China and is now living in Melbourne. So thank you so much for joining me today, Xiang.
Thank you. Thank you, Amanda, for having me here.
So the very first question I always ask my guests is to do a bit of a self-introduction. So a bit more about yourself, what you're doing in Australia and how long you've been living there.
Okay, thank you. Actually, when you ask me that question, I start to think about where should I start. Being a cat mom or international student, immigrant or artist. But I think I'm actually working as an art therapist, which is a kind of career many people doesn't know about. When I tell people, oh, I'm an art therapist, for a very long time, I thought it was English problem that people can't understand me. But I think it's actually people don't know about art therapy. So I'm actually a psychotherapist. So I'm a psychotherapist. I use art as a medium to engage with people. I mainly work with people experience trauma. And I'm an artist. So not all the art therapists have an artist background. It's just I happen to be an artist. Yeah. So, and cat mom, as I
Wow,
said.
that's so incredible.
Yeah.
I think it's really great that you've sort of incorporated your love of art and this skill that you have into your professional career. Like, what better way to blend the two together?
Yeah. So it's a story starting from, I think, 2018. I never in my life, in my craziest dream that I'll become an artist one day. I grew up in China like a typical, well, for me, it's quite typical. I just study, went to university and start working. And painting was something so random to me. In 2018, I think at that time, I saw the box of watercolor for sale. I was like, well, I like color, why not give? And I just couldn't stop. I fall in love with this painting medium. And then also another thing is I experienced mental health firsthand. So I've been seeing counseling and psychological help for a very long time. I feel like I really struggled until I actually met art. And I realized when I'm painting, I really slow down and feeling relaxed. And even my cat will use me when I'm painting and walking on the paper, drinking the water, trying not to let them do it. I really love painting. And then at that time, I was like running workshops. I talk about mindfulness because it's like a buzzword. Whether you work in mental health or not, you heard that word before. So I was like, maybe art can be a therapy. So I Googled it and then it was. So even being an artist myself before, I never heard about art therapy. It's such a we knew, but it's actually been there since last century. Sounds so long ago. It has been there for a while. It's just people haven't been utilized it enough to actually help support mental health. So at that time, I decided to actually study Master of Therapy. I started 2 year remote thanks to COVID, but I don't have to drive to university to the other side. But it's just that time I realized it's actually quite nice because people assume art therapy with painting, especially I'm a painter. But art therapy is actually quite broad. We use like clay, beading. What else do I do? Print making. I'm playing with some natural leaves. I made so many birds' nests as a way of saying, oh, this is what I feel safe. So collage, and that's the time I realized, oh, this is so good. I can try everything. And then that's when I started everything and start working in the field.
Yeah. Did you do that painting behind you?
Yes, that's a sunset in where I live. So that's one day I went out for kayaking and I saw that sunset on my kayak. So I live actually right next to a river called Werribee River. And this is the field I connected to. And then I did a lot of painting along the Werribee River views. And then one or two trees I really love. I just keep painting them again and again. And then also the endangered animals here. I never seen those endangered animals in person because they are actually endangered for a reason. So I paint them from photos
Yeah.
and trying to run workshops related to that kind of topic to let the younger generation
Yeah.
know that do something now, otherwise we will never see them again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. And okay, when did you actually arrive in Australia? And did you go to Australia to study psychology? Was that the main reason you ended up in Australia and then you did the masters after? Or what was the kind of what took you to Australia, let's say?
Okay, so this is also random. Life is full of surprise. So I actually remember exactly the day. That was 2009, 18th of July. That's the day when I landed in
Okay.
Australia because my original intention to come here is help me with my English. So in
Okay.
China, we have an English exam called the level 4, college in level 4. So if you didn't pass the exam, you still graduate with your bachelor degrees, but you're not going to get the certificate. University going to hold it. So you're not going to have it. That at least that
Sure.
was my time. So my bachelor was
Yeah.
in Chinese literature and linguistic. And I always
Yeah.
struggle with this exam. So I feel like I tried so hard. Finally, I passed it after tried it for 8 times. And now I feel like shivering before I go to that exam. So I said, I'm just going
Yeah.
to go to Australia. I'm going to spend some time. I'm going to do one master's here. And then I will
Yeah.
speak better English when I go home. I will have better
Mm.
opportunity for work. And then I think it's
Yeah.
also a way for me to taking a break from working. So I came to Australia. I still remember about 1 or 2 weeks after I arrived here, I was walking on campus waiting for someone to do grocery with me. I sit underneath the Australian national flag and I looked up. I was like, wow, I'm in Australia. So that was
Ah, the
that
realization hit
moment.
you.
Yeah, I was just like, that's the moment where reality kicked in. And then I
Yeah.
struggle with English so much in the first place. I remember when I went to supermarket, I tried to get some cling wrap, but I don't know how to say it. And we don't have Google Translate on a smartphone at time, 2009. So I
Yeah.
told the supermarket staff, is see-through. I know that one, see-through soft and food, cover food. It took him a while. He's like, oh. And then he showed, oh, it's
Yeah.
cling wrap. So he took me to the aisle. And that was the original plan. So I did my first Master of Business in the Australian National
Mm.
University, which really suits my
Yeah.
personality because it's a really quiet place. Canberra is a really quiet place.
Yeah.
So I started
Yeah.
there. And then that I was like, maybe I really enjoy the study because you don't have to worry about the pressure of work. You
Yeah.
have a clear deadline of assignments. You go for the exam. I feel like I'm trying to hide from reality. And then also the minimum requirement to stay in Australia at that time is you have to study 2 years full time. But my degree 1 year full time. So I actually keep studying, thinking about maybe I will consider to stay here because I really like it. So I finished 3 masters in 2.5 years. I know it's crazy. It's just hard in university sometimes, but maybe at that time I feel like academic is something I would enjoy. But I actually start working in
Yeah.
Australia other than staying in university.
Yeah. Wow. It is. So it's been nearly 20 years then.
No, 16 to be exact. Yeah. So
16.
2009.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
16.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Wow. That's crazy. That's good. That's good. It gives me hope. I've been in India for almost 6 years. So
Okay.
it'll be 6 years in June, actually. And I feel like 6 years is such a long time.
Yeah. When I first arrived Australia, so someone picked me up because I couldn't find accommodation before I came here. A friend's friend picked me up and then I crashed in their living room. And then they been in Australia at that time for 6 years. I feel like, wow, that's eternity. I've never expected I would spend 6 years. My plan is 1.5
Yeah.
years. I finish my language course and my master's and bye. Well,
Yeah.
I guess the reason why you have a plan is you can change it. So I end up in Australia.
It's a beautiful story. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah.
Now, in regards to your art therapy, obviously you do art therapy, there's the mental health counseling, and I saw
Yeah.
on your website you're also doing corporate training to help
Yeah.
people with stress, burnout, or cultural adjustment. So, how do you combine all of these things together? They're all such important things for everyone, but in particular, immigrants with that cultural
Yeah.
integration. So, how do you combine all of these?
I think I just have to pull the stories, like cooking a dish or put all the ingredients in. So one thing about therapy is through my work, I saw someone who's like truly burned out from work. A lot of time we think burned out is just you tired, you take a break.
Yeah.
Before the person I met, I'm just going to use they, so I cover up the gender. They actually end up being completely not able to work, living in psychiatric hospital in and out for years, having severe amount of all kinds of treatment. So at that moment, I realized, wow, this is serious. It's not just like, oh, I'm a bit tired this week. And through
Yeah.
observation, and burnout is actually bigger and more common these days. And because it's common, you can see it everywhere. So people don't take it
Yeah.
seriously. And they were like, oh, I'll just push a little bit more. I'll push a little bit more. And then, especially as an immigrant, to find a job, and then it could be a language barrier. Especially, I
Yeah.
participate in a program called IGAP. So YGAP, already do that line. So I participated in the program called YGAP. It brings immigrants who wants to start a business together and then helping us to get the skills. It's like an incubator for immigrants. And that
Oh,
was
great.
2019 before COVID. So I was running some programs
Okay.
at that time. I met so many people who has been in the sector supporting immigrants in Australia to find jobs. How do you write your cover letter? And that's the time I realized it's actually harder. And then to get a job and the loneliness is a big
Yeah.
thing. You can actually have, if you have work, you go to work regularly, it might help a little bit. But a lot of people
Yeah.
having that isolation and loneliness no longer go in the program. And then a lady said, being an immigrant not only means I left my home, it means I left all the long conversations and my friends behind. And I was like, wow, that was so beautifully said. And
Yeah. Oh my
then
God, I just got goosebumps. It's so
when
true.
you're in India, you definitely feel that kind of
Oh, that
lost
was
of
the hardest part, the
connection.
loneliness at the beginning. You don't prepare for it. You don't know how to prepare for it.
Yeah, it's so hard. So I see a lot of immigrants tend to just stick with the original language group. Say Chinese,
Yeah.
stick out with Chinese group.
Yeah.
Some people like me, because my university, I had a chance to hang out with people from all around the world. And English is the only way we can communicate with each other. So I made friends. I was very lucky. I got stay on campus. But what I'm trying to see and help people, especially in the corporate environment, because I've been doing corporate training, I think 12 or 14 around that time. So one is
Mm.
disability training. So it's about
Yeah.
how can we make the workplace more accessible for everyone. Another one's a communication training. I work with another organization. We talk about communication skills. And that's the I think about. We really need to do something in terms of the work relationship management, emotional intelligence, and then also mental well being. In Australia, we have a lot of programs like EAP programs to support. So you can actually go to a counselor for free or something hilarious. So I went to a conference about 3, 4 weeks ago, just a month ago. So it has 200, 300 people there. It's about
Wow.
updating the industrial stuff, like we need to do, and mostly HR there. The mental health part is in the afternoon. By that time, I realized most of the people already left. When the speaker talking about mental health and work well-being is compulsory by the government, guess what's the first question came in? The question
What?
was to the speaker, what is the bare minimum we need to do just to tick the box?
No.
Yes.
Oh, the audacity. Oh my gosh. And let
Yeah.
me guess, they were not of an immigrant background, were they? They were Australian, weren't they?
I didn't know the person who asked this question because
Yeah.
they are not having enough courage to put the hand up, say, hey, I have a question here with the bare minimum. So they submit it
Oh,
through text message. It's a quiet message. So you don't have to tell them who you are. They actually have a platform so you can ask questions without showing who you are.
no.
And I was understand that the employers trying to cut the costs, managing this kind of things. They KPI is everything in mental health. But the thing is, if
Yeah,
your staff have a better relationship with each other, they will do better teamwork, they support each other. And then if they have a
exactly.
better mental health, there will be less sick leave, there will less turnover, and then the
Yeah,
productivity will improve as well. But it's like
absolutely.
mental health is just bare minimum. What's the bare minimum we need to do to not to get
What was
any
the answer?
well, the lady who ran that workshop did say you need to do these requirements.
Yeah.
But afterwards I talked to her. I said, what of not doing the bare minimum? She said, if you're actually doing a little bit more,
Mm.
your employees likely to stick with the company better. This is one
Yeah,
thing.
better staff
The second
retention. Yeah.
yeah. And then the second thing is when you actually get work safe checking you, if you're doing more than bare minimum, you have less paperwork. It's easier for you to pass the
Yeah.
test. And then this is what I did when I was in university as well, when I was a student. I said, if my goal is pass, I likely to fail because
Mm.
I'm not always reaching my goal. But if my goal is to have a credit or even better, like 70%, and if I didn't achieve it, I can still pass.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. What you say about WorkSafe is so true, though. I actually used to work for workers' compensation in Queensland. So I worked for
Okay.
work cover. I was a claims assessor. And it was my job to determine whether someone sustained a workplace injury, either physical or psychological, as a direct
Yeah.
impact of the workplace. Psychological claims were obviously really tricky to navigate, and a lot of the time they didn't get accepted. But you're right. If there is not that support there, then from a workplace perspective, it's going to impact staff retention. It's also going to probably impact the condition of your employee and how they
Yeah.
respond to incidences at work. And when someone gets to a point where they are suffering a mental health condition, everything is going to bother them in the workplace. Every little thing is going to bother them. And that's going
Yeah.
to impact. Yeah.
Yeah. And then especially and also if the mental health is not there, their family life can also impact the work.
Absolutely.
And people are easy to get burned out these days. Just to
Yeah.
back to the burned out topic, I'll quickly show you something. So because I used to be
Sure.
running my own business, so I feel burned out all the time. I tape up the reason, but I feel like I'm so
Yeah.
burned out in the toast because I spray myself too thin. Same.
Oh, I love the analogy. There's a bit of art therapy coming in. It's a bit like a drawing journal, isn't it? Instead of writing, you're
Yeah.
drawing your thoughts. I love that. I'm not a very
Yeah.
creative person, but I do appreciate this kind of concept.
Okay. So this is the thing. People think art therapy, you need to learn how to do art, but it's actually okay. This is
Yeah.
something we all do. Just put the paint on the paper. I use them to express emotions, and sometimes I paint with my fingers, and that actually helped
Yeah.
me to reduce the stress, especially when it comes to a corporate environment. A lot of people are not there to say, "Hey, I'm not
Yeah.
mentally feeling well today," because people are,
Mm.
there are so many fears that can
Yeah.
associate with that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's
especially
still a lot
with
of
all,
stigma around it, isn't there? If you were
yeah,
to call in sick, I know in my company before I left, the management was trying to encourage people to take mental health days, but there was still that kind of fear of calling up and saying, "Hey, I just need a mental health day today," because the managers
yeah,
will ask, "What happened?" And it's not as simple as I tripped over and sprained my ankle. It's not as simple as having that physical injury and explaining what happened. Sometimes you just can't be bothered. You just can't do it. You cannot get
yeah,
out of bed and you just need a day just to do nothing and you need a mental health day. And I think there's not enough education around that and understanding around that. And that's where people get a little bit of, they have a bit of a struggle about it.
yeah. I work in one of the public hospital here in the psychiatry ward. So this is something I found really supports in that work because it is mental health focused. But a lot of
Mm,
friends, when I saw them really struggle, because we are friends, we catch out for dinner, sometimes a drink. And
mm.
then when they really struggle, I say, how about just take a day off, that mental health day off? You can just get a GP saying you are unwell. You don't
Yeah,
have to say why you are unwell.
exactly.
And they were like, ah, I can't. And then even with the EAP programs to support, they are afraid that their employees will know they are
Yeah,
actually seeing a psychologist or counselor. So this is
yeah,
where I feel like the benefits of art therapy, because if I actually go to a workplace and running an art therapy workshop or art as therapy, people will see it as just making art and something to
okay.
feel better. So it's less
Yeah,
obvious as just sitting there and talking to a counselor. And then,
yeah,
especially when it comes to a group environment, you can actually with one work and then that sense of team together, building one
yeah,
work. And then I usually using this is a small postcard. So I
yeah,
put a lot of postcards together and they paint together and each one take one home. Just take a random one home because that would be something they can hold on to feel like part of the team. So
yeah,
I think this is
yeah. I love
why
that.
thank you. Art in workplace is actually a bit more soft and sometimes you can an indirect way of engaging
Yeah,
people, express their emotions and like
yeah,
achieving a better mental health. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And so you said earlier before about your own experiences with mental illness. So how has your personal experience with mental health shaped the way that you support others?
Well, actually, when I was studying, I still remember that one time I couldn't go to my lecture because I'm just feeling really unwell that day. I had some issue with that,
Mm,
surprisingly, in training to be a counselor. But my supervisor talked to me, and I always remember that talk. So she said to me, we all, likely most of the counselors or therapists actually experience mental health issue ourselves too. And that
mm,
makes us understand our clients
yeah,
really from their perspective. And then having
yeah,
this lived experience make a huge difference because we be in their shoes. And
mm,
then that will help us to really building that empathy and feeling
yeah,
like, yes, I understand your feeling. And also because we are professional trained. I heard so
mm,
many stories from my clients and then with all the trauma things they went through. Because we are professional trained, so we know how to have a clear boundary not to owe, and then also protecting ourselves as well. And then also from my lived experience, I understand why we are not giving any advice. Because that's just first thing first is most time people will not be able to follow the advice. People have their own circumstances that it's hard for them to follow. And second thing is when giving an advice, like if you should do this, you should do that, it's a judgment. I'm actually feeling like this is one thing I learned experience when people don't give me advice, but giving me encouragement, me to check in with myself. That's the time when you work the best. And then you just can't snap out of it. So this is one thing I learned that's so working with a lot of clients, especially in public psychiatry, a lot of things they went through are the things I cannot even imagine. But having lived experience myself, I understand in their position what they probably needed at that time. And this is, I think, make a big difference.
Yeah, definitely. I imagine that it would. Having someone who has maybe not gone through the same struggles, but has gone through mental health concerns or gone through different feelings and being able to empathize, I think is the most important thing that anyone looks for in this kind of, let's say, relationship when you're seeking help from someone. Having empathy from that professional, could be a medical professional, it could be a mental health professional, but having that empathy from them can really make a huge difference.
Yeah, thank you. Sometimes I feel like working in mental health, it's like when I'm new in Australia, I struggle with English. No one just snap it and speak better English tomorrow. No one say that. They understand you need to take time, you need to practice. That's exactly the same as mental health. You can't just say people like, feel better. I wish people need to take time. It's like learning a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm not sure if it's the same in China, but here in India, there's still quite a lot of stigma around mental illness and mental health and things like that. It is getting a lot better. It is. And I used to have a psychiatrist. I'm now in remission with my disorder, but I still have my therapist. And I'm very open about my struggles and getting help and things like that. I do have a bit of, I think, what's the word, privilege being a white woman here. But I do see a lot, there's a lot on social media, a lot of therapists, Indian therapists on social media spreading, I don't want to say the word, but spreading what mental health support looks like and what mental health in India looks like as well. But there are still, I think, people from older generations just who don't quite understand the concept of it. And it's, just do a bit of meditation or do a bit of yoga, you'll be fine. What are you depressed for? You have a good life, all this kind of stuff. And that obviously doesn't make it any easier. So then it's a lot harder for people from these kind of cultural backgrounds where there is stigma to seek help when they go to a Western country where help is a bit more readily available.
Yeah. I think this is one of the reasons why I chose to stay in Australia. Is during my study in the university, we get counseling service. And that's the time I realized, and then I also got training from the university because I was the senior resident of my college. So I got training from my university. That was the time when I first realized, so this is what mental health is about. So those is actually important. And then I right to feel better. So I started seeing counselors, and then that's the time I realized, I'm not that judged here. There will still be people judging you.
Yeah.
But then I realized someone I can really trust and getting into a recovery path. So this is I recently went to this conference by the guy who wrote the book, The Body Keeps the Score. So
I read that book. That was incredible. Oh, wow. You actually got to go to a conference of his.
Yeah. So I sit down there
Amazing.
2 days, and then he basically trying to share. So Basil trying to share his research. He did talk about yoga a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I should say there's definitely nothing wrong with yoga, But there's the idea that you do one yoga session and everything's
And
fixed.
then, that's not how it works. But he
Yeah.
actually made one thing. I remember this is what he said. He said, ask people not to have emotions. It's like asking them not to go to toilets. That is just
Yes.
not possible. And
Yeah.
our work as therapists is to help people to process their emotions and then
Yeah.
to making it, because trauma make people feel like they still living in it. You lost the sense of time. So every time it triggers you, you feel like the spine was cold. You feel like you're really there. But he said it's just trying to turn into a memory in the
Yeah.
past so people can actually. But that toilet metaphor is so good. I like it.
It is. Yeah. Yeah. One thing I really loved about that book, it took me a while to finish it because it was very technical.
Yeah.
But the one thing that really stood out for me in that book was that if you don't heal what's inside here and you don't heal your stress or you don't manage your stress, it comes and exhibits as physical symptoms. So that's
Yes.
why, and burnout is a perfect example, isn't it? So if
Yeah.
you are not managing your stress or managing your trauma or working through your mental health concerns or your mental illness, then that's when it starts to present as physical symptoms. And anxiety is a perfect example. Like
Yeah.
you can end up with like diarrhea, you can end up with stress headaches, you can end up with
Yep.
fatigue. All of these things are symptoms, are physical symptoms of something inside. Doesn't mean I'm very good at managing it, but I know it exists. I know that there's a correlation.
It's okay. As a therapist myself, I'm not very good at managing it anyway. It's easy to work with someone, but I understand the struggle and then how it impact my physical health. And this is
Yeah.
what he talk about. And then in that book, he talk about, exactly how your body actually respond. When a person asks a question about the quite similar diagnosis in ADHD and then also trauma, he actually said that a lot of this diagnosis, ADHD or depression, anxiety, and then borderline personality disorder, is actually rooted with trauma. So this is
Yeah.
the part we really need to work on, because once you solve that, and all those things are the surface symptom, like you said, a headache might be something you can just take Panadol to manage.
Yeah.
But
It's like
what
a
is
band aid, though,
actually,
isn't it?
yeah. So what is actually causing that headache other than to people? Sorry, Panadol didn't
Yeah.
mean to. I say painkiller. And then he
Yeah.
actually talk about yoga a lot, and then how that
Yeah.
helps. But it's just one of the tools we can use. But just having yoga is not gonna to be enough. We have to work on that.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not like a cookie cutter approach either, is it? It's just that everyone is literally different. I remember when I started seeing my current therapist, I've been seeing her for a bit over 2 years now. And when I approached her, it was after COVID. I'd been seeing a different therapist during COVID, but I wanted someone who was a bit more familiar with borderline personality disorder. That's what I was diagnosed with when about a year after moving here.
Yeah.
And I'd been reading a lot about dialectical behavioral therapy and DBT
Yeah.
mindfulness for BPD. And when I approached my therapist, I said to her, I would really love someone who knows about DBT. And she's, well, I focus more on a holistic approach. So I look at what your current symptoms are and treat those with appropriate modes of therapy rather than just kind of keeping you in a box of DBT. And I was like, wow, that's so interesting and it's so true. And so,
Yeah.
yes, I'm still seeing her 2 years later. She's great.
Yeah. So this is what Alfred Adler's theory is all about. In the book, The Courage to be Disliked, I love the name of that book.
Oh, I read
The
that one too.
Courage. It's actually based on his theory. I still remember they having this example of if you got a flu, you catch a cold last night, you went to see a GP. The GP will not spend an hour to say, "Oh, what were you wearing? Was it windy?" Because
Mm-hmm.
what he need to solve out is I have a running nose, I have a sore throat, and then how can I actually get better tomorrow? Other than
Yeah.
you more clothes on, like you didn't put enough clothes on. And this is what was said in his conference, talking about the trauma again and again without actually processing it is not going to take you anywhere. And I was like
True.
nodding like this.
Yes, tick, tick, tick.
Tick. Because a lot of my personal experience, some therapists I worked with, they let me just vent, talk about it, but you don't feel better. You might feel better at that time, but go back to your life and then everything comes back again. So
Yeah.
some therapists I work with, they really help me to process it. How can I actually live today in a way? And then I acknowledge that what I went through is part of me, but that doesn't define who I am.
Yeah.
And then I wish I've ever met someone who said, "Oh, I never experienced trauma in my life." I'm curious how that person would look like.
I
Because,
know. Oh my gosh.
yeah, that's just not. Maybe there's so many people on this planet might say, "Oh, I never experienced trauma." But the thing is, this is one of the things I did. I do a lot of trying to do more videos and podcasts and to talk about mental health is because for me, I had no awareness of what happened to me until I came to Australia and learned about this.
Yeah.
I want more people to understand what you feeling
Yeah.
today, what you're struggling is not your fault. So what you went through is not your fault. And sometimes we're having that anger and an emotion is because what we went through. And then if you can get some support, get that support. And then if you're trying to self-help, make sure you get the right help for yourself. Because I want people to live in the world at least, let's say there's an ocean full with trauma and traumatized people. If I can drop one water to help just one person, and then
Yeah.
that will make me feel like what I'm doing is quite meaningful.
Yeah. Absolutely. And what you are doing is meaningful.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's so important. I mean, obviously, when you had reached out to me and you mentioned art therapy, I didn't really know much. I'll be honest, I didn't know much about art therapy. I did think it was just painting. But then when I had a look at
Yeah.
your website and I was like, wow, this is going to be a really amazing chat because I mean, obviously, I'm not a therapist or anything myself, but I do have a lot of interest in the topic of mental health just based on my own experiences, my own diagnoses.
Yeah.
So I knew that today would be a great chat. Now, you designed a traditional dress for the Melbourne Fashion Festival. Is that
Yes.
right? Is that, I think I got it
Yes.
right? Yes. So tell us more about that, what program you designed it for and what inspired it? What did you learn from the process?
Okay. So this program is called Wonder Gym. And then it is literally a gym for artists. It's an incubator running by this lady, Nelly. She's just incredible. And with the support of where I live, so Wyndham City Council with Epi, who runs the project, I surprised she's still talking to us after the program.
Was it very
She,
stressful for her?
it's so stressful. Just looking at her, I feel so sorry of all the. So the intention is to demonstrating multicultural and diversity. So art is so diverse. We have people, immigrants, people born here, people from all age groups, different cultural background, different gender, and then all kind of things. So when I got the email saying this is an opportunity, I was thinking about, oh, I always want a traditional dress because I
Yeah.
watch TV. So I quickly designed something.
Beautiful.
So this is a traditional dress. But the thing is, this is one thing when I make a proposal, I want to have a piano made. I usually end up with an elephant, which has nothing to do with my proposal. So I try to dye the fabric with local soil, and then I realize only cotton can have a light dye, but cotton won't give me that dress feeling. And then I was like, okay, I'm a watercolor artist. Maybe I'll do something else. So after all these drafts here, yeah, I know. It's a lot of different kinds of draft. I made a painting, a mix of
Oh,
Australian.
beautiful.
Thank
I
you.
got this tattoo when I was in Australia.
Yes.
The golden
Um,
wattle, Australian tattoo.
yeah. So I have the water here.
Yes,
And then this
that's
is Chinese
stunning.
national flower, mudan. And this is which is a Chinese flower. These two flowers are the flower reminds me my hometown and my connection with Australia. I have photo brush in my garden. I have gum trees in my garden. So when I first came to Australia, amazed by Banksia and then the
Yes.
seeds or nuts. So I did this painting, and I feel like this is something that brings the culture together. I feel like that's what is blooming inside me. And then I
Yeah.
decide to design based on the traditional Chinese dress. I bought the pattern. Yeah, I just can't do it. I look at the pattern. The person who designed the pattern sent me a video. Everything's in Chinese, but I have no idea what you're talking about. So that was so hard. I was like, my mom came during Christmas. She said, you don't have an edge locker. So she helped me to just get the fabric ready to sew.
Mm.
And so I had the fabric print in China. And one of the artists in the group told me, oh, you don't, I was like sewing a formula. I was doing a whole calculation, how much I need to fold. I was like, I asked ChatGPT to do the calculation for me. And
Yeah.
then I met this local artist. She said, no, you don't have to. You just need to put a thread through it and push it together. And it will make the fold for you. I was like, thank you for saving my life. And I
Yeah.
learned everything through YouTube. Luckily, I was able to crochet. So I did the top and then to hold it in place. So the dress, I
Yeah.
only need to put the fabric into a like round
Okay.
circle. So
Yeah.
this is the time I really had that voice to say I'm a
Mm.
Chinese Australian, to talk about my Chinese identity. And
Yeah.
then I encourage everyone to do a fashion walk if you could,
Yeah.
because really boosts confidence. You see your body and then everything. They told we had no catwalk training. They say just
Yeah.
be yourself, be confident, and look over the photographer because
Yeah.
that's when you're having. But they say don't smile, don't smile. Everybody say I couldn't. When people are like wow,
Oh, that's
yeah,
amazing. Yeah.
yeah.
So what are you doing with the dress now? Are you going to just have it on show at your house or are you going to wear it?
I actually going to remove the red part because it's just
Okay.
quite a lot. Shorten it a little bit because that shoes hurts. And
Yeah.
I'm actually wearing it day to day because it is just this is one of my
Yeah.
intention. I don't want it to be something that ends up just hanging in my wardrobe and never got
Yeah.
used. So this is
Yeah.
actually something I can actually wear it. But it's a really warm dress using layers of
Okay.
crochet and your fabric.
Yeah.
But amazing
You might
experience.
be starting a side hustle now, Xiang.
Yeah, that's
You
what
might
my
get people
partner
asking you to make them.
yeah, that's what my partner said. He think the dress is really nice and maybe people want to buy it. But I also
Yeah.
made a backup with
Oh.
also same concept. You can see the
Yeah.
anxiety driving. I
Yeah.
can send you a photo of the other one. So that one is actually I asked the person who made the pattern, who did the sewing for me. But instead decided to go with my absolutely not perfect sewing dress that at least it hold
Yeah.
on to me. I make sure it doesn't fall off on the runway.
Like it didn't fall off when you were walking. Then you get even more cheers.
I'll be on the news. I
Oh,
guess I have
it's
to change to
beautiful.
and then even just on the runway, I had all my hair and everything pulled back because that fully showing my face, that not hiding behind my hair, which I do it all the time,
Yeah.
gave me so much confidence. And then it was a very supportive group. We in the
That's
backstage,
great.
the designers and models, you can do it, you can do it. It was just so nice to work with this
Yeah.
group of people.
So
I asked
special.
my partner, "How do you feel like dating a fashion model now?" He doesn't want to talk about it.
What a
Yeah.
great experience though for you all around.
So yeah, being able to actually use my name as Xiang was quite Some of my friends really encouraged me to use this name because when I first came to Australia, I had an English name. But this is something I found my identity and being able to on that stage and talk about I'm Chinese Australian and having that confidence. And people are actually really nice. They learn how to pronounce my name, which I really appreciated. And then some people feeling like really struggle. I say you can call me Miss X. You're like a top Asian. Some of the children.
Yes, female 777 agent.
Yeah, yeah. So I say you can call me Miss X. And then so a lot of people still call me Miss X because they really struggle, but they willing to show that yes, this is your name. And I explain the meaning that it means I can fly. My grandmother gave me this name. And then I think as an immigrant, it's that moment when I'm finally comfortable of inside this identity that make a big difference. It's a big difference.
Absolutely. Yes. Well, leading into identity, we'll just move on to the last question. I normally like to ask some advice from my guest as the last question. So, what advice would you give to migrants struggling with mental health, identity, or adapting to life in a new country?
I think the first advice is you will take time. You will take time. Yes, the English is correct. See, I just checked that.
Self-correcting is a good skill to have. I always tell my
Yeah,
students that.
yeah. So you will make mistakes. You will have those moments you just don't know and don't understand. You will have in the conversation, maybe your Aussie friends are talking about something you have no idea what they're talking about. This will happen. But the thing is, take your time and then you can adapt into the culture because Australian is actually quite an open culture because it is a culture of all the cultures mixed together. And for immigrants, the first thing is take your time. And the second thing is most of the people I met in Australia, when I say something wrong in English, they didn't bite me. So they actually help.
Australians won't correct you. And that's a really
Yeah.
big problem that my students have. Why don't they correct me? And I'm like, if they can understand you, they won't. They don't care.
Yeah. So this exactly. So people are actually quite friendly here. So if you go out and hang out, for people, I'm an artist and a therapist. So I go to the urban sketch group, which is a very nice social place. And there's a app called Meetup. Feels like they paid us for the advertisement. You can
I
actually
recommend Meetup as well.
okay. So you can actually go out and hang out with people who there's a language exchange group, there's painting group, there's chess group, walking group, a networking group. So just go and meet people and keep practicing until one day you will realize that you find that fine balance because at the beginning I found struggle is oh I can't do English, I can't speak English. In the middle of my journey I feel like I lost my identity, the Chinese identity.
Yeah.
So I finally found my garden with both Australian and Chinese flower growing together. And then yeah, and then I think this is the moment. It will take some time. And but regardless, no matter what happened, this is an experience. That's something that help us is life is like a journey and this is part of our experience. Don't focus on the destination too much and remember to the process and sniff the flower on the side of the road. Some experience when we grow older, we can tell our grandchildren, you know what? Granny came to Australia with this story. For me, I can tell my cats and this is Granny. Mom didn't go out for hunting. I hide that food in my car. So he admired me. Oh, I'm actually doing something else. And then I think this is one of the
Yeah.
thing. Take your time.
Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
sharing. And it's so good because the advice you've just given is what I tell my students and what I tell people on Instagram as well. Try and join social groups. Use meetup.com to try and find hobby groups. It
Yeah.
takes time. Be patient with yourself. Try and find that balance between your own culture and your own belief system compared to the country that you're living in. Sometimes you might lose yourself along the way. So that also comes from my own experiences of living in a different country as well. So I'm really glad. I'm also really glad that you said you've had really great experiences with Australians because unfortunately at the moment there is a very loud minority of racism happening on the internet and day to day.
Yeah.
We'd be naive to say it didn't exist. So I'm really glad to hear that you've had some really positive experiences because that is majority of Australians. It's just that social media is pushing forward a lot of the negative comments and the racist comments and the racists. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm really glad that you've had those great experiences because I'm sure a lot of people are a little bit scared about those things happening, and that makes them a bit scared to approach Australians or to talk to
Yeah.
Australians or join these groups for that reason. But majority of Australians are very welcoming and understanding and patient.
Yeah. Especially an artist group. Just Meetup has a lot of art group.
Yeah.
They're usually really nice people. I'm pretty sure they're bad artists too, but
It's a nice way to get out of your comfort zone and maybe try new things, right?
yeah. And then that's what comfort zone, like when you try outside, it's really uncomfortable, really scary.
Yeah.
Especially I'm an introvert. It's really
Yeah.
scary. But once you get it done, you'll be like, oh, I tick a box. If this was a video game, I got a new trophy. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
All right, Xiang, how can people contact you if they want to know more? What's the best way to reach out to you?
I think people can reach out through my email, which is Xiang, my name, at therapymelbourne.com.au, or they can find me on LinkedIn. And then that's my
Okay,
full
good. I'll
name,
put all of
Xiang.
those details in there. Yeah, I'll pop those in the
Okay.
description for anyone that's interested. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much again for coming here today and being a guest. It's been so lovely to hear your story and get to know you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, man. It's very nice to talk to you as well. We understand the situation both in immigrants and mental health. Thank you.
Definitely. Yes. Thank you.